All right. Hi, everybody. This is Nephew SIG Automation Meeting, Wednesday, May 24th. All right. So we are at code freeze. I think we're not quite frozen, but there's still a few things hanging out there. But I think there's been a great effort. I appreciate everybody jumping in and doing a ton of work. I think we're really close. So we're not gonna, well, the first thing we need to talk about, well, I'll switch the order. I'll show the agenda here. One second. Present. Share screen. Okay, so the agenda, I'm just gonna flip these two around. So, we've been meeting in our subgroups now for the last couple months, pretty frequently. I know that package specialization cut down to once a week. I suggested yesterday package management we cut down to once a week, and maybe actually cancel it. It was suggested there that instead we have 2 weeks left basically this sprint, and 3 if you count the last week of sort of supposed to be just cleanup or done really. And so it was suggested there that maybe we switch to daily 15 to 30 minute just quick scrums. We can, where everybody just says, do you need something from somebody, what's the status each day, just to try and get the delivery done. And then if we did that, I would think we would cancel all the sub-project meetings. And I wanted to raise that here and see what folks thought about that idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that worked well for us during the workshop last 2 weeks. I think probably it's going to work. I think it's a good idea. I think we'll start with next week, right, John? That's your idea.
Yeah, we would start with next week. I would still cancel the package management meeting tomorrow. I don't think unless somebody here thinks we need it, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
And then, so starting Monday, what I would do is 9 a.m. Pacific this time. I could do 8:30 as well, if that's so. Like
Monday is Memorial Day, so I'm starting Tuesday.
That's this coming Monday. You're right. Okay, so starting Tuesday, yes.
Yeah.
Monday's a holiday here in the U.S.
Yeah, the time works for that time works as well. Yeah.
8:30 or 9. Can we just raise vote of hands?
Any exceptions for anybody who can't make it 9? I can make both. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, me too. The only reason I suggest 8:30 is because it might be more convenient for folks in Europe and stuff. But really, I know that everybody's here right now if it's 9. So.
But it's every day, right? So the problem is that's the challenge. So I think it's mainly for the people in India, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's an open source community. It's not a mandatory meeting anyway. We'd love to have you here, but sync in on
Sure.
Slack if you can't make it, right? Like,
So alternately, people who are in the different time zone, they can actually put their status in the Slack channel before the meeting.
Yeah.
That way, we are aware of what needs to be discussed, or reach out to them to help. That's another alternate way.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. Okay, so unless there's objections, let's plan 9 a.m. I'll book it for 30 minutes. I think if it's this big of a group, there's no way we're going to get through a scrum in 15 minutes. If it's, so we'll see. But so I'll book it for 30 minutes, 9 to 9:30 every day. I should be able to make those in general. I might have to miss Mark myself.
Now, maybe one suggestion. I don't know, because I think we have to bring up management cluster, and probably Tal, I think you can also bring up workflow cluster independent, right? Would you agree? So for now, and would we sync all the time, or would we do the first week like doing these two separate, because you probably have different people, and then we merge? Or
that would be fine with me. So I have 2 concurrent. So that would be for management cluster, but I would say 9 a.m. But yeah, Tal, if you want to do a separate call for a workload, it's up to you.
I think we
Oh,
should
no.
all do it together because we're at the point where. So setting up workload cluster, I know there's been some work on infrastructure. I haven't been entirely in the loop. I know Wim, your sub-project has kind of taken some of that, but today at least we create the workload cluster in SIG release, right? Because we kind of assume that it's there, so it's part of our test bed. I think we need to discuss everything together at this point.
Oh yeah,
Not separate.
we've automated that. We can now, so you can now,
Right.
well, like, I think there's one PR to merge still or something, but you'll be able to just literally deploy a package for each workload cluster. Create a package variant set that creates 20 workload clusters, and in 5 minutes they'll all be up and running. So that's pretty cool. But so I think what we meant by bring up was meant the Scrum discussion, but that's fine if we do them all. That's fine.
Let me make even a bigger suggestion, and we'll get Bala's opinion here too. Should we, to an extent, maybe we should just demolish the sub-projects at this point and just all work together on the same Scrum board for the integration piece. How does that sound?
Yeah, I wouldn't say
that's
demolish the sub-projects, but we will know for the next 3 weeks, we'll just have one Scrum board. That makes sense, yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Tal. That's a good suggestion. We already have the board, by the way. I create.
So you're always 2 steps ahead of us, Bala.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
And all right, so then.
No, it's okay. The reason I'm suggesting it is because you see that they can be parallel activities. Okay, we can meet together, right? And typically you have different topics you want to discuss in each of these sections potentially.
Well,
So
I'm hoping
okay, let's
really
start and
just
we'll
like-
see how it goes, right?
Yeah, I'm really hoping this is just like
Yep.
are you blocked? If not, shut your mouth. If so, ask what you need.
So are you blocked, and can we actually make sure that we set aside time later? Because the danger, like many of us have said, is we probably might start discussing topics. Basically, whoever is blocked, let's actually set up a separate, like a parking lot. That's what we used to call.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll have individual meetings for groups that need to do the work to integrate.
Yeah.
Not during
So
this one meeting.
What I will do for my and for myself, but I'll suggest maybe we all do this, is the 30 minutes after that, I'm going to keep a room like actually I'm at home for the rest of the month, but yeah, like I'm going to book out 30 minutes after that. So if there's any breakout topics, we can do that, and we can maybe folks should plan that, but they may not need to do it.
Okay. And from a Scrum Master perspective, are you actually going to be looking at the top? Okay, it's going around the room. Basically, you're just going to go around the room asking if anybody's blocked. Basically, I see.
So
I think so. Bala, I would ask Bala to chime in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most likely, yeah, we could do that. We have a few important essential pending items, and then we could just ask the status too. Probably we could do that as well.
Yeah, that's where I think it will get a lot more,
Yeah, because we know at this point of time, probably once John brings up his other topic about the presentation to the TSC, where we are talking about qualification for the release, at which point of time we have certain items that we definitely need for the release, and then probably we can pinpoint those. We can for all those items that are in the board, we can figure out where we are, and then anything blocked, any help is needed, because at this point of time it's very clear what we need to accomplish in the next 3 weeks.
I think so. Yeah.
So one of the suggestion is like, hey, if you have made your update on that issue, and if you don't show up at the meeting, you're excused. But if you have not made an update on the issue and you don't show up for the meeting, there must be a good reason why you didn't show up for the meeting. I mean, that's one way actually to force.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm all for accountability. It's a little challenging, I mean, yeah, you're committing to something when you say you're doing it, right? And so we hope that we expect you to deliver, and it's not like we can do anything about it, but we will be, will not reflect well on you if you don't do what you say you're going to do. And I don't think we've had a problem with that particularly, but like it's just something to be aware of.
Well, we don't have to be too brutal about it. If people can't make the meeting, we can find them on Slack maybe later and
Absolutely.
coordinate. Yeah.
But what I tell
Probably
my,
if you
what I tell my
can give them the
kids is-
context, and then probably if you can give everybody the context and everybody the sense of urgency why it is needed, probably you can influence it that way.
Well, here's a suggestion. We suggested to give community awards, for people who contributed voting. Maybe we should give community punishments for people who didn't.
I mean, everybody should get a community award because they're part of the community.
So
by
I
default.
think Tal, maybe the punishment is next time when we meet, they should all give us party.
That's right. Yes.
They
have
should
to buy
take the bill.
buy
Yeah.
a round of,
Yeah. A beer is on them.
A beer for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Antu already promised all of us wine, so that's kind of she's already punished. So
That's true. That's true. She said she's got, yeah. Okay, we're digressing. Let's get going. So that sounds pretty good. Let's then dig into the next topic, which is tomorrow is the TSC meeting, and we need to give an update on where we are. And this is not yet the presentation to the TSC to approve the release. I hope to do that 2 weeks from tomorrow. I hope we've made enough progress to do that. That's still a week before our official one we said we would release, but it may be a, I don't know, qualified approval. I don't know, but timing wise, that's how it works. But we do need to give them an update. So what I did is throw together some slides and asked for feedback on Slack, and I got a bunch of good feedback, but I want to go through them here. This may take most of the rest of the meeting, but we need to have this ready for tomorrow. So first thing, why is it so tiny? Can you guys see that, or?
Maybe a
If
little
it's
bit.
possible to close the comments on the right, I think that would make it.
Probably, but I'm not sure I know how to do that.
To slideshow, John. To slideshow.
It's
Oh,
better
okay.
now, John. We can see it now. Yeah.
All right. Slideshow. Then I can't put comments in. And okay. So I think this is true, and I wanted to make sure that I'm not deluding myself. But I think we actually have met these user stories. We can. I mean, we don't have a beautiful demonstration yet of this, but I think we can deploy the 5G core network functions, and we can. Sorry, I need to be able to see what's going on, and we can. I did have a question here, and is Stephen or somebody, actually maybe Tal, you can say. Stephen said it does support an update, so we can actually say increase the capacity, and it will make a change to the resource requirements of the UPF, so the or to the number of pods or something, replicas or something like that.
yes, we're committed to do that. Yeah. Go ahead, Stephen. Sorry.
But it restarts, John. But it's okay.
What's
Yeah,
that?
I mean, that's an implementation detail that could improve, but it will work.
Yeah, so basically when you change the capacity, it will adhere, but the way to implement it will restart, so the pod will restart.
Oh yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah, I don't think freeze fed. Yeah, okay. All right, awesome. So then that's truthful. We will be able to do this as well. We already know that. So I think Stephen said that now I saw Ann put in the SMF PR yesterday. So it sounds like we expect to be able, maybe we can't quite do this right now, but we do expect to deliver it in the next 2 weeks. So we're okay saying yes here too as well, right? We've got,
I'm not so sure what. I haven't tried it, so let me try and report back.
Yeah, we're not. It's not completely finished. We know that, but it's definitely part of the. It's in scope.
It's in scope, right? This is like what we're doing is we're saying. So we're just. I mean, even things that are yes, maybe it means they're 90% yes, whereas at risk means it's like there's a 25% chance of, well, 50% chance of it getting in, and no means there's like a 1% chance of it getting in, right? Like, you know, if everything goes beautifully, maybe the no turns to yes too. But the things that are yes here, I don't necessarily, and I can say this in the meeting, like, this is our expectation. When we say yes, it means we're very confident. You know, there's no guarantees, right? Our data center could go down for 2 weeks and we'd be dead, right? I don't know. But, you know, at risk means there's a high likelihood this won't make it. I don't know if that's true, by the way. I put at risk because I haven't heard anything about it. And I know we've got all the network functions running now, but, you know, do we think this is at risk?
I think it's personally, I think it's at risk because did we ever try to communicate so far?
It's hard, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's
There's lots to do so far, right? So I think I would put it at risk. for
That's
now.
why I put it at risk, because it's sort of like, it requires everything else to be working.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Rob-
and
Robbie?
also some of the other network functions where we have some hard-coded IP addresses where we need to take care of that. So I think it's at risk in my view.
Ravi's hand is up.
Yeah, just on the user story 3, how do you plan to kind of validate it? What would be the workflow?
So my understanding of how this would work is we have somewhere we're expressing the capacity intent for SMF. I don't know what that is, number of sessions or something. And then you'd bump that up. You'd apply that in your package or whatever. And that would generate an updated SMF deployment, which would get delivered to the operator, which would then see that the capacity in the SMF deployment is not met by the current function that's running. And so it would adjust the Kubernetes underlying, either increase replicas, increase memory, increase CPU, whatever it needs to do. And then theoretically it restarts it, or it does it. I mean, Kubernetes itself doesn't support in this. I think it's maybe just being in place updates of pod resources is something they've just, maybe the most recent version does or does in beta. So that's the workflow, right? Anyway.
Yeah, so there's the code. There's code for handling changes in number of session, number of connection, maximum number of connection, maximum number of session. So, but I have not tested the by applying an SMF deployment change to it.
And I will say that, I'll say, like, when we say yes here, it means we're confident that we can get it done in the next 2 weeks, because we have all the basics in place, but we haven't completed the integration, we haven't completed the testing. That's kind of what this sprint is all about.
Yeah.
So it's more or less like the vertical scaling, right? That's what we were trying to intend here. It's not like horizontal scale. Yeah, okay. I think probably
it's not like adding SMF instances. This is more.
It can be probably a little bit more explicit than people vertically scaling. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, SMF right now is running, but it does have an info message saying it's looking for NRF and it can't find it. And I don't think we have NRF. So I'm not so sure how that would work in making a UE ransom call.
We should have all of the other network functions. We probably need to do a little work on the packages to make them a little more configurable or something.
Okay.
To integrate them with our IP address management system or something.
Oh, Stephen just said we will have NRF during integration. So cool.
Yeah, that's this story here. Provision all. I'm assuming Free 5GC has NRF. Then yes, we should have that. We have the packages for it. They're already in the repo from Orange. So, but we probably need to make them.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little
it's
more
probably
robust.
because I didn't have it in my environment, so that's why.
Yeah. That's the integration piece. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
And I think when the default requires you to have more than NRF, you need the NSSF, you need the UDR, UDM, and all that stuff.
Yep.
I've seen the signaling, so by default it is on a slice, so you need all that.
Cool. So Stephen's trying to say something. Sorry, his Sound's not working.
It's audio drop, I think.
Okay. So you're saying that, yeah, okay. What we said already. Okay, cool. All right. Robbie, is that okay? Your hand went down.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, then that was this next one, provision all of them, because that's kind of a prerequisite for this one. Provision workload clusters and join them in FU management. So this is swim lane 1 infrastructure. So now we'll be able to provision. Now later we'll get into the limitations on some of these things, but this is just at a very high level. We added UI editors or UI viewers, and we expect to get editors done as well for some of these new resources that we use for package management. Like I said, and then this one, which was a stretch anyway, is a no. So this was the interaction between user plane. So, oh, I just horizontally scaled my UPF by doubling it, the number of instances, my SMF, it's going to imply, it's kind of imply a change. This kind of requires the topology controller, things like that to understand it. Okay, so we're good with this. We're good with this slide is what everybody's telling me, and I'm going to check it off. All right. Last chance to say no. All right. So then I divided, so that's user story. So that's from the point of view of functionality. And then I just created some capabilities sections. And I mean, I created these slides. I'm open to different ways of presenting this, but this is how I put it together for now. So we have general purpose capabilities. By general purpose, I mean, they can be used in swim lane 1, they can be used in swim lane 2, they can be used in swim lane 3. And they can be used for things other than telecom, but really from our point of view, infrastructure is not really telecom, right? It's infrastructure. So in that sense, we need these general purpose mechanisms. The first one is just like, okay, we've got a way to bundle intent all together in KRM and bundle and packages. Then we've got all the package management stuff we did. So this is mostly the stuff, some of the basic stuff supported by Porch, plus the stuff we added for Nephew, the package variant and package variant set controllers. And it's also config sync in here. Then I took package specialization into a separate category. And it looks like is that me? Why is it not showing up? Weird. I guess I didn't finish writing that sentence before the meeting started. That is going to say, I was going to say, I don't remember. Package specialization, specializers that integrate with external resource automation, yeah, allocator.
Resource backends or something.
Yeah. And then in addition, a developer SDK to simplify creation of additional specializers.
I would also add one more point there, along with the developer SDK and the test framework. I would also add that.
I did that later. I think Bala is better later because we have qualification, right?
No, that is qualification is about release criteria.
Okay, we want to add it here.
Yeah.
No, that's true. I added it. I thought, okay.
Yeah. It's fine. We can have it both. Like it's part of that. It's okay.
Yeah.
More is better.
Test framework is more not to ease, but it's basically to validate a specializer independently somehow. That's, I think, the beauty in my view.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can rephrase it.
Okay. And then from a day 2 point of view, these are some of the things we get from the basic infrastructure of like, you can pull in and update individual, because we're doing these sort of per cluster repository, per cluster instances, wet instances of packages. You can sort of pull in, if you update the upstream, you can pull in the individual changes to them one at a time if you want. So that's what I mean by regulated manual adoption. We don't have a controller that automatically goes and approves things yet, or does a rollout, but we have a manual way of doing it. You can discover that packages need to be updated, and you can propagate those down. You can figure out which things are touched. Propagation of input changes. This is I change a resource in the cluster that's used as input for 12 of those packages, it will go and tell me that 12 of those have updated. That's something that that we have as well. At risk, I put the status feedback because I haven't seen it yet, and I know it's something where sort of Stephen and I talked about this yesterday, and he was okay with this, but I don't know if we want to put any bullet points underneath this or not. Any other changes we see needed here? Okay, next one, specific things for our use case. So day one, config automation. So this is where it's not just general purpose specializers, but we actually integrated with IP address management system. We integrated with the VLAN management. There's maybe a better way to say this, or maybe there's more way to, there's like this bullet point is actually really hard and it's sort of buried here. So I would love if we could, if people have better ways to express it, but the idea is, right, like we're building out these APIs that we can use to do all of this stuff. So I would love some help on improving this slide, because I think there's more we did here that it's not as, doesn't come across as well. Which we can do now, or we can do, people can do offline, but we need to have it done today. Automation.
Well, remind everybody, this is for the TSC. I wonder if we're even going into too much technical detail specifically.
Well, I'm not going to go through all these bullet points in the meeting. This is for reading. I'm going to just do the top level bullets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to drill into all the stuff I'm talking about here. I'm making sure that we all, because and other people are welcome to talk at the TSC too, but I plan to present this stuff and pull in anybody who wants to say anything. But like, we're representing this as a SIG. This is, and so I want to make sure that I'm not saying something that people say that's not true, or that's overly optimistic, or that's wrong. Like.
John?
And this yeah, go ahead.
Steven said that he filled up topology automation part offline. Since he can't talk, he put it in chat.
Excellent. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, good. So yeah, so basically a bunch of things we did that are specific to telcos around being able to provision these very complicated workloads, and then UPF scale out, SMF scale out. So these are built. The reason I put these in here is because they're operator, right? They're part of the operator. They're not just part of the platform changing configuration of Kubernetes stuff. It's part of the operator.
Yeah, I think the main thing that we did, John, I think what we should reflect here is the dependencies or the requirements between the NF have to the infra. I think that's the main thing that we have been focused upon. But I will, maybe I'll have a look at after the meeting and then maybe suggest a few things.
Yeah, and go ahead and edit it. A number of people on the call should have edit privileges, and if anybody needs them and doesn't have them, I can give them. This is in like the Nefio workspace, but like we had permissions issues with Google groups and all this stuff. So only some people who are on a really old Google group have probably edit permissions. But everybody should have comment. The world has comment. Yeah. Okay. This is very small. I think we need to break this into digestible bits. So I tried to do these, yes, no, at risk thing at a very high level. If we can get this down to 3 to 5 at most of those big level bullets, like this one is actually kind of more than we should have.
But it was my brain dump. So.
Yeah, exactly, right, yeah. So and then.
So, but can we just discuss it? I'll take that action item, John. I'll predify it, maybe. But if you can agree, this is the lines that we are thinking, then I can go ahead and do that work.
Yeah, let me see. Let me put this in slideshow mode so I can read it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll build. Yes, exactly. I would. I would probably break it out like, yeah, like there's a CI section.
Yeah.
That talks about how the qualification we do on PRs and those CI tests we do, pushing it to Docker Hub, like you're saying. And then yes, an E2E test thing.
So what I mentioned here is like the E2E testing, right? I mean, what is the base minimum thing that we need to test? At least these should we have. Basically we should be able to deploy the management cluster and deploy workload cluster using Nephew and deploy the Free5GC operator, and then deploy obviously the Free5GC network functions and ability to
Yes.
make sure all the pods are up, make sure we can ping from UPF to SMF. So that's the fundamental test. Whatever we are claiming on the slide 1 for S.
Yes.
And
No,
then,
that looks right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then basically test the scale out for UPF, test the scale out for SMF, and the sanity testing of UI. So those are, I think, we must cover for us to claim from a testing perspective.
Okay.
That's mainly a functionality. And then the other thing is ability to deploy an FEO on one other KDS cluster other than kind, maybe. I'm not saying it's automated or anything, maybe somebody trying manually.
Okay.
The user docs, we need to have a user docs published, installation guide, deployment guide. And basically we need to have a successful scans of copyrights and licenses. We need to make sure that that one is done. And the release code, basically branching strategy, we need to, whatever the tagging branching is done, we need to do that for the release job. The one thing I was not sure is from a LF perspective, do they have any requirements for us? Since we are under LF, that's one thing we need to clarify tomorrow, maybe, John.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe the TSC will have some other. This sounds good to me though. That seems like it hits the right points. The one thing so then I have some other slides that are more like I probably won't talk about, but they're like in the deck for people to review later. So this gets back, the reason I bring it up now is it gets back to we have two different styles of deployment we need to support. Bring your own cluster, which is provisioning Nephew management in an existing Kubernetes cluster, and then I guess provisioning
because this is only the management part, John, right? Because if you want to do the network, the workloads, you have to deal with the networks and stuff like that, right?
Exactly. Provisioning workload clusters and intercluster networking out of band. So I don't know if I should use that word, but to me that means like not using Nephew. But it might mean something else to other people. So and then there's the kick the tires sandbox. This is like all in a VM, does everything you can, and I talk about in here, the next page, like, okay, some setup options and limitations. Like for cluster provisioning support, we support open source cluster API, but only the kind provider has been tested, and there's no cross cluster networking beyond the Docker bridge for kind. So, right, so we automatically get it in kind.
That's not 100% correct, I think. So we also for Multus we have a networking, right? So that we do, but it's within the VM. We have Docker Bridge. We have Docker Bridge for the default CNI, but then everything that Multus has its own networking stack.
Oh, okay. So it's not just Docker Bridge, but it's only in VM. No cross cluster networking,
Yes.
Yeah,
except
we have no fabric basically.
Yeah.
You could do that if you do that manually. So someone has to sort this out.
Right.
But,
We just don't automate that at this point.
Right. The point of this is that's what this bullet is about. And maybe I should say this: automated cluster provisioning. You could do it. That's kind of the point I was trying to make here. Is you could do all of if you do the infrastructure setup manually, you can do the workload user stories on top of that.
Okay,
Yes.
I would be more comfortable if we say limited automated. Yeah,
I mean,
limited automated cluster provisioning support. It's very, very partial at this point.
right, but that's fine. I don't care. The point of this is to list the limitations. So it's this
Oh yeah, we do.
category,
Yeah.
and then here's what we support and what we don't support. That's the
Why you guys debating that? I have a quick question.
Yeah,
The fabric, will that be a feature in R2 or R plus, whatever?
good question. I don't know. That's going to be something we need to talk to. So one of the last things here, we should actually add that right here, if it's not already on here. So we're going to have a list. I've got my own list as well, right? Fabric. So what's going to happen is after R1, and SIG 1 is supposed to be working on this already. I think they are. Is Sana wants to get it by the end of June, say. SIG 1 is going to sort of give their thinking on what the next direction is. I think we, as SIG 2, should give our sort of punch list of, hey, here's all the things we see, which includes things like technical debt, or just, hey, we took this approach and we tried it and it works okay, but we think here's a better approach. Or we're missing this, we need to be able to configure that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's probably a dozen or more things like that. And then there's the other things we think about of like, okay, if we want to actually tell this full story, we need the fabric automation, right? So we're going to present a list of our 20 different things likely. It's probably somewhere on the order of 20. I mean, there's already a dozen on here. 20 different things that we think need to be worked on. SIG 1's going to come up with their list, and the TSC is going to help us prioritize. So my thinking is that, and I've talked to different big leaders too, is that the plan right now will be, we, SIG 2, will figure out what we're going to work on next, while SIG 1 and the TSC are figuring out what we should work on next, right? So we'll make up our minds and we'll work on our technical debt. We'll work on our things that we see as important next steps. And maybe there'll be an R1, one, I don't know what we call it, right? R1.2, R1.3 that we release every month or 2 months or whatever it is, until the rest of the community figures out the bigger goal that we want to address next.
And the fabric, I mean, just to double click really quickly, the fabric and kind are not really compatible in my head, right?
I mean, they have to be, they might be, right? Like kind is really just for testing. Like,
Yeah.
But we could have a fleet of kind clusters across multiple VMs, and there could be fabric automation between those VMs that make, for simulation purposes, make it look like kind is talking, to something real.
Yeah.
Like,
But I'm thinking, quote unquote, real world deployment, right? Or
Yeah.
it's not kind.
no,
Okay.
definitely. So now I have goals to take everything we've done in R1 and demonstrate it using, say, GKE and some of our things, but GKE doesn't support Multis, for example. So it's not useful for these network function workloads right now. Actually, I think maybe they just released, or maybe that's, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But there's, they don't support Multis, so like that doesn't work for that. But so anyway, demonstrating it with things other than kind is very much one of those things we would do as well. So, okay. So sorry, I got kind of off on a separate topic there. It sounds like then we need some work on this telecom specific capabilities. Some folks are going to chip in there, and Bala is going to take a look at this qualification piece, and then yeah, comment on these. I'm going to add stuff to this last one as well. Looks like Tal's in there adding stuff as well, and so we'll you know, other than those caveats, are people satisfied with the particulars of the deck for presentation tomorrow at the TSC?
Are we going to include anything for future work regarding the shift right approach, like this workload delegation that we have discussed, or this should be discussed first in the SIG one, and then decision needs to be made?
I just added some themes there that relate to that. So, but you know, those are my own additions. I think we should.
We might not even include this slide, right? Like maybe we just skip this, and because like I think we all have a list, and we probably need to spend more time. No. Okay. And not just R2, R1++, because R2, I don't know. Anyway, R2 is taken on a meaning of functional things, and I want to have a list that includes just addressing tech debt, right? Patch release almost type stuff. So
I think for me, this list, John, is more like, okay, we know we have small things that we can cover, right? Without changing the whole thing.
Yeah, this is.
These, right? If we really have fundamental things, we should go through the SIG one, basically, right? So
I think my initial thinking was, Wim, just like what you said. I was thinking, you know, like it's more like a patch release items.
It's not like major surgery we are doing, let's say.
Patch release items in the sense that, you know, like we know we wanted to do end-to-end call, for example, or we wanted to do topology automation.
Exactly. What are the just the next steps that don't require
also we know
obvious next steps?
Yes, and the technical depth. Bug fixes, integration test coverage. Then we wanted to do some reorganization with our packages inside our repos. All those kind of stuffs is what I was thinking.
Yeah. So okay. I'm gonna let me just put. Where's the comment? Sorry, I just want to. There it is. Okay.
So I think to that point, John, you're also going to talk in tomorrow's meeting about us having the ability to do this incremental releases instead of waiting for the full-fledged R2, right?
Yeah. So I was about to say, let's not include this slide, but do we want to include a slide that's just like follow-up work?
I think what we can say is that we have a bunch of enhancement that we already know that we want to do. So we wanted to go ahead with that, something like that, right? So, because otherwise, I mean, you see already on the thing, we want to, it's going to be like another slippery slope. I think I would leave it like that. So say, okay, there is a few things that we already know that we can enhance. We will continue to work on these. And then for any major items will be.
Okay.
Or we could split, I mean, to make it clearer, we could split this into two slides. One is R1++, you know, patches, enhancement, and the other one is R2 ? Or whatever, however you want to title it, and put all the major feature people are suggesting into that slide. To make it clear that there are things that immediately we could make it better, more functional, and then there are major features that the group wants to add.
I think we need to have that conversation with the TSC. I don't think tomorrow's meeting is the right time to have that conversation. Yeah. So like I can maybe make a statement of like, this is not R2 planning. That's a larger process. We have many things we would like to do there, and you know, obviously so do the other SIGs and whatever. So
yeah, because right now people's suggestion in the chat are more of major feature, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
By
Yeah.
Kafka.
Tomorrow's not the time for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay, then that's it for this agenda item, unless people have other topics. And I have one more item I wanted to bring up. It's super short, which is maybe or maybe not useful. I started this a week or two ago and then got distracted with other things. But I think it might be useful to have a drawing that shows we have we have a lot of components already in the management cluster, and we're adding more, and we need to differentiate between. Actually, I'll say, how do I? Yeah. Also need to differentiate between the sandbox and BYOC models. A lot of these just for sandbox or reference implementation. I mean, it's not really a reference implementation when it can't be used in any way in production, but maybe we can call it that. So the idea was like, even just trying to we're like, oh, we need metal LB, like, let's throw that in. We need that because we need it in order to host Git and be able to serve now, I guess, so like, it would be useful, not for tomorrow. This is more for like the next couple of weeks. We need to document all these pieces that are in there and running. So I started this drawing. It should be shared with, it's in the FEO thing. So if anybody wants to contribute to it, just ask for access. You all have commenter access, but if you want to edit access, just ask for it, because unless you're on this old list, you won't have it. But it would be helpful, or maybe we just create an issue and somebody takes it on to document this, because there's actually a ton of stuff in here in the setup sandbox. So that's all my agenda items. We have a few minutes left if other people want things. There was nothing else on the agenda, but if for general discussion.
I think you preempted my question. I was going to ask about Metal LB and Gitty. They're more like optional only for our sandbox.
Exactly. So is for that matter, Cappy, right? And maybe even certain so a bunch of these things, and resource backend is something we're delivering, but is also optional, because maybe you've got your own IPAM, your own VLAN allocation system you'd want to integrate with. So all of these things are, the only things that are really Nephio, and even this would be potentially optional if people don't want a web UI. These are the things you absolutely have to.
Yeah, the web UI is mainly for that somebody to go off, author a package, approve and publish.
Right, you could do it all with CLI if you wanted to, and so those are the things that are absolutely. We don't have this yet. I'm going to add a GCP cloud provider GCP controller manager, because I have some things I want to sync. So one of the models, right, is cluster API. We provision the cluster. Another model is we discover clusters that already exist. So I want to demonstrate that. I don't know that I'm going to get to it in the next 2 weeks, but I'm hopeful, where I can demonstrate discovering clusters within GCP in an Anthos fleet, and then we can use those and target workloads to those clusters. So that would become in a separate controller manager, and this is like the early versions of Kubernetes bundled in specific cloud provider code into the primary controller manager, and then they spent years splitting out into separate controller managers. And so I'm trying to avoid that mistake. We're trying to keep Nephio controller manager to be all vendor neutral, and then we might add a cluster provider AWS that goes and discovers clusters, EKS clusters, and populates the Nephio inventory with those, right? So similarly, we may have multiple of these, one for each cloud that we're integrating with. So that's what that is. But again, it's Nephio, but it's an optional component. So that's like another color, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And we have a few there, John. I think what is also worth is initially is to discuss how to, for example, today the thing that creates repo is Gitea based, right? Is the approach
Yes.
we would take to make it uniform. I think I have a few ideas, but it would be good to discuss it with the team. And
Yes. Is that
because
built into here, or is that a separate? Is a separate
at the moment
package?
it's there, but so
Okay.
as such, it's violating the rule you just said. But if we make it generic, it doesn't. It's built to be generic, but it's only calling Gitea right now. But it's built to be generic. But the
Right.
question is, how do you? What information do you use in order to do that? So you could do an environment variable. You could do a provider model, right? You could do.
Well, there's also theoretically people could want to support more than one. So that's like an entirely discussion.
Right, so that's what I'm saying is that there is various approaches to this, and there is pros and cons to them.
Yes.
And so, and depending on the use case, you might want to pick one or the other. But as such, I think it's not a bad thing to have, because it's the same true for clusters, right? We pick cluster API, but because we could use kind with it, right? That's why we picked it at the end of the day. Thanks to Victor sorting that out. But at the end of the day, you see that there are specifics to it, and we want to abstract those as soon as possible, I think.
Yes.
So that's, I think, why for me that I would personally like to spend some time on that to make sure that we have that infrastructure in place and then adhere to that and implement those. Maybe we don't support them all yet, but at least we have the framework adopted in a way that we can make it generic.
That's one of the prime areas I want to look at too. Yep.
Hey, Antu has her hand up for a while.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've been heads down on SMF, right, workload, and I'm popping back up now because I check in the PR, and I'm a little lost on these components. Like, I knew vaguely that Metal LB was being adopted for load balancing, but not sure how and why. Is there a place where I can catch up on these things?
That's why I started this drawing, because we're
Awesome.
moving fast and we haven't documented it well.
Yeah,
Can I
and then
suggest we have 3 minutes left. I really don't think we're going to be able to.
yeah, I'm asking for pointers, not discussion. And then the
Okay.
second question is even bigger and more generic, is for somebody like me who want to, from, let's say R2, switch from workload to control, right? Just to be able to learn more and be more exposed to what's going on. Is that, we should start thinking of a process for people to do that?
So process wise, I mean, I think there's a
Or mechanism,
right, like there's, you can join anything you want and we'd love to have you. I think that the issue is onboarding of the knowledge, and
Yeah.
that's something we have to spend a lot of time on over the next month. I would say, like, there's certain onboarding of knowledge we need to do in the next 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks before we release. And that's going to be focused on initial installation, setup, and user. But then I think right after that, developer onboarding needs a lot of attention. There's so much so much documentation and work around onboarding and explaining and presenting that needs to be done. I expect that, I personally am going to spend a lot of time on that over the next 6 to 8 weeks. But I think it's something we could all spend a lot of time on. Would be wonderful.
Yeah, so I can help with the developer onboarding if
Awesome.
you're leading it. Okay. Because it'll be a learning thing for me.
Right. Yeah. You document it as you're learning it. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Awesome, everybody. Thank you. Any other quick questions before we wrap it up?
So, John, I Zoom kicked me out when I was talking on the last slide when you were
Oh,
presenting. So what was the decision on that one? I just wanted to understand
the
this. one.
decision was basically, we'll have like a bullet, maybe a slide, but probably just a bullet or two that says, hey, we know there's stuff we need to do that's just sort of like immediate follow-up work.
Yeah.
And we're going to be working on that. But there's a larger question of what's in the R2 and beyond releases and SIG Automation. This maybe belongs actually in the SIG update, right? SIG Automation will present its sort of list of ideas.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be tomorrow's meeting. That'll be in another meeting. So if a slide like this talking about beyond R1 exists at all, it's going to be what's the immediate follow-up work for a patch release.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, and then we also wanted to ask of potentially having a patch release too. That's another thing that we need to tell TSC.
Yes, right.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Okay, so then what I heard was Bala's gonna take over this slide and sort it out. Steven's gonna fill out some more stuff on this one, and that we're okay with these two slides, and we're okay with these two slides. Obviously, feel free to go in and read them in detail and comment or add stuff, but we do need this done today because we need to put the deck out. I think she usually puts it out the night before, or certainly the morning of. So we need this done today in Pacific time, or I guess maybe say since Europe's already the end of the day, maybe by 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, my time, so that I can take it and synthesize it into the TSC deck. I think should be okay. That way, if anybody from Europe wants to contribute tomorrow, or from India wants to contribute tomorrow, they can.
So John, the qualification, you want it to be one single slide, right? You don't want it to be two slides. Just one.
If there's a big logical separation of like qualification, like CI/CD stuff versus qualification of overall release, and you wanted to separate, or some other division that's like a big logical separation, that's fine for two slides. I just, I originally thought we'd have, fewer slides, and I split these in the same way because it was too much. So I'm fine with that, but I just want to make sure that they're 3 to 5 digestible.
Got it.
We're all in the details, and the TSC, most of the people are very, very removed. So that we need to keep it as high level as possible.
Got it. So probably what I'll do is I'll try to create one single slide and I'll move that detailed slide as a backup slide so that we don't lose the data for our internal discussions. But for the TSC, I will create one.
And this doc, this particular doc is just for us, and then I'm going to copy these slides over. So you can do whatever you want in here. Just demarcate which ones you want me to copy.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Wait, John, can you share the link to this on Slack?
Oh, it's in the agenda doc.
Okay,
So,
cool.
At the top of the agenda, at the top of the Slack channel for SIG Automation, there's a link to the agenda doc. And so then it's right here.
Yeah.
It's also shared in the automation Slack, and yesterday John shared it.
Yeah, I haven't caught up on all the Slack yet.
You haven't read all 300 Slack messages from the last week?
No.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Have a good one.